Okay, welcome back to another session of our plant identification series. Today we are going to be covering leaf margins, or more specifically, how you can describe a leaf margin when you're attempting to ID a plant. And right off the bat here we have kind of the simplest of margins. There's really nothing to this one, it's nice and smooth, and this is what we call an entire margin. And this is Corinocarpus levigatus, the karaka tree. Over here we have Melicitus ramiflorus, the mahoi, and you can see that on this leaf it has little teeth. And when the margin of a plant or the margin of a leaf is toothed, we typically call it serrate. There is more to it depending on the shape of the tooth. There are a few other more specific pieces of terminology that you can get into, but the most common terminology that you're going to come across is just serrate, or sometimes in botany textbooks and whatnot they may just say that the leaf margin is toothed. They may not specify whether it's serrate or something else. However, sometimes the margin or the serrations, so this is not a native, this is a prunus of some sort, a weed. But you can see that the serrations on this leaf are actually themselves serrated. They've got kind of tiny little serrations on their serrations. And this is what we call doubly serrate, or a doubly serrate margin. So you can see a smaller serration kind of partway along the bigger serration. Next up, if the serrations go deep enough and the teeth kind of start to turn into lobes, that's exactly what we start to call it. So this is Alciosmia quercifolia. It's kind of right on the brink there where you'd kind of call it teeth or lobes. It does get a bit subjective, or at least I don't know exactly when it cuts off from one to the other. But you can see that this leaf is kind of looking a little bit more loby rather than toothed at this point. And this species, Alciosmia quercifolia, can become much more extremely lobed, like this example here. And that there you'd definitely call it lobed and not toothed. But yeah, those are kind of the main ones that you may come across when you're looking in the bush. Just got a few more examples here. We've got a Porocyphidae, the Hedicaria arborea. Here's another serrate or toothed margin for you to look at. And yeah, pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot to it. One other type of margin that you may come across when you're looking at mahoi, sometimes the younger ones, this does not have it, but sometimes the younger ones have what is called a crenate margin, which means it's toothed, but the teeth aren't sharp. They're kind of blunt, curved teeth. So that's not what we're looking at here, but every so often you will come across a toothed margin that does not have sharp teeth, meaning it is a crenate margin rather than a serrate margin. But otherwise, not a whole lot to it, and I'm going to give you the exact same advice as I have in the previous videos, where I suggest that you just kind of do a quick Google. If you just use Google Images and just search up leaf margin, you will instantly get a whole heap of different diagrams showing all the different types of margins and whatnot, and it will give you all the names and everything. So you don't have to memorize every single type of leaf margin that there is. As long as you kind of understand that there are different types of leaf margins and that they all come with their own fancy pieces of terminology, you're already 90% of the way there. And it's all about just giving the correct descriptions when you actually attempt to ID the plant later down the road. But yeah, that's really all there is to it. Hopefully that's helpful. Main thing is, just give it a Google. If you don't know how to describe a margin, Google Images will give you plenty of diagrams to help you describe it. One thing to point out here is that sometimes the serrations are only on part of the leaf. So we could say that this one has terminally serrate. So kind of on the terminal side of the leaf is where the serrations occur. I think that's what you call it. I can't remember, that might not be the precise terminology for when the serrations are only on part of the margin. I will have it on the screen if there is a different, more correct terminology for that. But just take note that you do need to be quite specific with this. You can't just look at this here and say, yes, it is a serrate margin. You need to be specific that it's only serrate kind of up on this half of the leaf and it's not serrate down the bottom there. Anyways, hopefully that helps, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.